Hi guys, I'm going to share a story that was sent in to me. The guy that sent this in sent in a very well written story. You can tell that he took his time. Uh, I am going to redact some names that are in this. He gave a lot of names, a lot of ranks of individuals that was with him, and I don't believe they're necessary for the story and for his safety and for the safety of those others. I'm not going to release their names. The story, well, I'm just going to read it to you and let you all describe. I found it very interesting. Let me get this phone turned down. It's very interesting. Uh, I think you all are going to really enjoy this one. I would listen to each part of this story. I would not skip anything. This guy has given a lot of information, and I think that y'all are really going to enjoy it. This happened in Georgia. It was a chopper crash. In 1985, he says, I was assigned as a military policeman to the U.S. Army garrison at Fort McPherson, Georgia, Atlanta. We received an alert for a squad to go secure the crash site of an AH-1, which he puts in parentheses, Cobra helicopter, that belonged to the Texas National Guard that crashed in the Chattahoochee Forest, north of the Ranger camp. We were helicoptered into the Ranger camp with our gear, and we boarded a Deuce 2.5-ton truck for the ride to the crash site. We made it to within a quarter of a mile to the site and had to carry our gear in. We relieved the Rangers that were guarding the site. The crash occurred about 12 hours earlier and set up camp. Our job was to keep people out of the area. Curiosity seekers, news people, etc. Yes, the news. Until the crash investigation team arrived and took over. The crash site was small, about 100 feet by 30 feet, because the Cobra crashed in one piece and then burned. So the whole area had fuel smell and the burned flesh smell. The accident investigation report was obtained by, I'm not going to give the name, but it was a sergeant in the United States Air Force, retired. We set up camp adjacent to the wreckage about 50 feet away and posted our guard shifts. I will not name complete names here because of two reasons. Number one, some of the people involved refused to even talk about it afterwards. Number two, I do not know where they are today. My squad consisted of 5 men. Again, I'm not going to give names, but there was a sergeant, there was a private first class, followed by 2 other SPCs and a PFC. We finally got the camp set up around 6 o'clock p.m. and the sun was going down. A large fire was built in the perimeter, which was pretty stupid in retrospect due to the large amount of fuel on the ground from the crash, and had set 4-hour shifts. Myself and SPC were on the second shift, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. We finally racked out at about 8 p.m. to get some shut-eye. At around 10 p.m., I woke up to the most god-awful howl scream you could imagine. And when I looked at my sergeant, I'm not going to say his name, and specialist, I'm not going to say his name, PFC, would have thought that they had saw a ghost. All 3 had their .45s out. We were armed with .45s with 2 6-round magazines, cock-locked and ready to rock. All were visibly shaken. Myself and SPC, about said his name, got up and asked, what the hell was that? The only answer we got was another howl scream that was about 50 feet to our east, from the direction of the wreckage. At which time, Sergeant, dousing the fire with a 5-gallon water can, and then told us to spread out and outline. He told us to keep our flashlights off until he told us to move out to the wreckage, keeping online. His words were, "If these locals want to F with the Army, then let's give them something they want." At this point, as we started to move, I could hear metal being pulled, thrown, and moved around at the crash site. And I kept looking for a light down there as we could hear moving about. About 30 feet away, Sergeant on his mag light, and what I saw scared the shit out of me. Three creatures were there among the wreckage, and they were not bears, not closest one, about 10 feet away. He was holding a piece of metal from the helicopter and stood on two legs at least 7.5 feet tall, covered in hair except for the face, which looked like a chimp. The one behind him, 15 feet away, was dragging part of the pilot's body from the wreckage. He or she was larger than the first one. However, it stopped dragging the body. My estimate was over 8 feet tall with the same facial features. I only saw the third one briefly 40 feet away as it was fleeing. Specialist was the first one to fire, after dropping the only flashlight, which sent everyone into Dodge City mode, basically shooting everywhere. Important detail from the interview: the flashlight was dropped before the first round was fired, so none of the rounds fired were aimed precisely at the animals. These soldiers were shooting in the dark. They seen something they did not recognize and panicked. After the sergeant got everyone to stop shooting and got us calmed down, yeah, right, we reloaded a fresh clip and circled the wagons, so to speak. This all lasted about 20 minutes from the start, when I heard the scream to finish when we stopped firing. However, we stayed locked and loaded till sunrise and did not move from our 360 at the wreckage. Around 6 o'clock it started getting light, so we moved out, and if we had killed one of the creatures, or could at least get a blood trail, we found no creature bodies or blood trails. Which I'm not surprised. We're firing in the dark, firing blind, and you're going to have a lot of muzzle flash. So, not a good situation. The crash investigators arrived at 8 o'clock a.m., and we said nothing to them upon agreement, and we left and returned to Fort McPherson. When I think about that night, I really get the willies about what I saw, and as I said earlier, some of the guys would absolutely refuse to talk about it. I honestly think, looking back at this, that these creatures meant us no harm. They were only scavenging. I think that they may have smelled the burned bodies in the same way you can smell someone barbecuing. How good it smells. They sensed a free meal, even though we were 50 feet away and were willing to take the risk. The howl or scream one of the creatures calling the others to find have only talked to 2 other people about this, and because I am still in the military, though I am no longer an MP, I wish to remain unknown to the public, at least until I retire in 4 years. As an investigator, you are free to contact me at any time. I will answer any of your questions that I can. He said that they were firing into the dark because the creatures that they had seen were unlike anything that they had ever seen. They were very large. They were humanish looking. They were bipedal. And they were feasting on bodies. These things will eat you. And that's another proof to me right there, because they smelt it, I believe, like what he said. They're going to have a lot better smell than us, so they smelt this in the woods. And if you've ever smelt something like that that's been burnt or something like that, it has a very strong, unique smell. They saw something that night they said they'll never forget. Like I said, his story is very well put together. It lists each and every individual that was with him. He says that they were ordered, of course, not to talk about it, but he feels that people need to know. The mistake they made that night was firing in the dark without light. If you've shot a gun in the dark, you get what they call muzzle flash, which causes a night blindness where you're not able to see. I'm sure a lot of them were night blinded, but not all of us can say we wouldn't do the same thing if you've seen creatures like that. I'm sure they were laying down cover fire in order to keep it from breaching their perimeter and protecting themselves. A lot of people that see these things, they have a lot of trouble. They PTSD. A lot of people can't stand what they see. I know from what I've seen, it really bothered me as a kid. for some reason, it didn't bother me as bad as it does most people. Neither did my job at what I done with the things I seen at my job. That some things I wish I would have never seen. But I can only imagine what went through their minds that night. They probably thought that they were going to be next, and seeing your brothers and sisters being drug off and stuff like that would cause you to fire. I want to thank him very much for sharing this. It's very informative. It was very interesting to me, especially coming from military. Uh, it puts a little bit of, to me, a little more credentials on it and credibility, and it was very interesting. And I want to thank him for sending that in. He has another story that we're working on putting out to you guys. We're still talking about it. We got to be able to put it out uh, discreetly. This story is from a friend of his that was sent in to him. He actually has a personal story that he wants to share with us. And once we get the bugs worked out of it, everything done to where we can release it to where it's not going to endanger him. He wants to remain anonymous. But I do have his information. He is a real man. And we're going to release that. And I know y'all ain't going to want to miss that. Hey, I appreciate y'all watching. This is a good one. I appreciate him sharing that with us. And until next time, y'all keep your head on a swivel and take care.